sometimes that route has to be rerouted or recalculated because it takes into consideration factors that were not evident to us when we began our trip. So what I see in this text is that God did not lead the people through the quickest route, but he led them through a journey to accomplish a greater plan. He rerouted them to take into consideration factors that were not evident to them, but they were certainly part of God's plan. So taking the shorter route, this 10-day route, would have taken the people into the land inhabited by the Philistines. The Philistines possessed a great military strength and superior weaponry. God declared the following reason for not leading Israel to the shorter route to Moses. He said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. So in other words, if they saw the Philistines coming out against them to hinder their journey, they would have become intimidated. They could possibly have had a change of heart and desire to go back to Egypt, considering it better to return to their former familiar bondage than to come up against the opposition and face the uncertainty that comes with the journey to the promise. It's a trick of the enemy. When we're trying to make our way to the land of promise, that we come up against opposition that sometimes may cause us to desire to return to our former familiar bondage. Those uncertainties and challenges that come with that journey forward, even that warfare that comes with the journey towards God has promised, is sometimes outweighed by the desire to just look back. Remember Lot's wife? She looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. So God led them in a roundabout way through the wilderness towards the Red Sea. Anybody ever encounter a roundabout on the road? They can be a little bit confusing and discouraging, can't they? I was in Boston trying to follow directions on my GPS, and it kept leading me into the roundabout, but I couldn't figure out how to get into the right lane to get out the roundabout. So I kept missing my turn, and I declare I drove at least an hour trying to get to where I was going when it was just across the roundabout. Instead of taking a direct route, God led the children of Israel on an indirect and unclear route. And because we know the story of the Red Sea, we also understand that by taking them through the wilderness, it set the stage for God to perform the miraculous. Amen? After the Israelites left, Pharaoh changed his mind and called his army to pursue the Israelites on chariots. The Israelites cried out to Moses. God instructs Moses to hold out his staff, and the Red Sea is then parted by God. And we know the rest. The Israelites walk on dry ground to cross the sea, followed by the Egyptian army. And once they've crossed safely onto dry ground, the sea closes after Moses lifts his arms again, and the Egyptians are drowned. Amen? So God set them up for him to perform the miraculous. And I'm here to tell you that God not only has a plan for you to get you where he wants you to go, he also has a plan for your enemies, for those old things that try to come behind you and pursue you, that don't want to let you go, that would rather see you remain in captivity. So this journey through the wilderness took 40 years. God used this time in the wilderness to humble, to try, and to prove Israel, while strengthening their faith and their ability to trust in him in times of difficulty. God knows all about us. He knows our weaknesses, our tendencies, and those things that we can become fearful of. And in his grace and mercy, he allows seasons of wilderness wanderings in our lives so that he can prepare us for greater. Although it doesn't feel good, he even uses the trials in our wilderness wanderings to strengthen our faith in him and our ability to trust him. Most of us would agree that taking the easiest route, the quickest route, would be a more comfortable journey, and it would be one that would give us a stronger sense of security. But on the flip side, there is something to be said about taking the uncommon, less traveled route. It might take you longer to get there. You may encounter darkness along the way. You may be in unfamiliar territory. There may be danger along the way. But while this road may be more difficult, in the end, it causes us to be more appreciative of the journey and more appreciative when we reach our destination. I remember I was coming back from Chicago, and I was behind a semi-trailer that was driving in what seemed to be rain that you just wouldn't be able to see. And I was glad that that semi was in front of me because I literally couldn't see anything else. So I just stayed right behind that semi. Now, I've driven up and down that highway many a times, and although that wasn't a detour off the road, it was a change in the external factors that made an impact on my trip. And so as I'm driving, although I really couldn't see much except the back end of that semi-trailer, you better believe when I got back to Milwaukee, I was like, woo, child, thank you, Lord. I finally made it. I kept driving. Even though it was dark, I kept on driving. Even though it was raining and I barely could see, I kept on driving. And I just want to encourage somebody today. You might be in a wilderness season right now. It might be dark, but I want to tell you, keep on walking. I want to tell you, keep on pressing. You might not be able to know what's coming around the bend, but I'm going to tell you, if you just keep on pressing, if you keep on moving, you will come out on the other side. And when you get there, I declare you'll appreciate the journey even more. This reminds me of the journey that I took when I decided to pursue my graduate degree. When I signed up for the program, they said it's a one-year accelerated program. I was like, oh, good, I can get that done and get it done in one. But I'm here to tell you that the one-year plan was not God's plan. It just was not God's plan. Between work, ministry, family, 1 year just wasn't going to cut it for me. So my journey became a 2-year plan. And I want to tell y'all, along those 2 years, I asked myself more than once, why did I sign up to do this? Lord, when am I going to finish this course? Matter of fact, I don't know if I want to finish this course. I wanted to quit on several occasions, but thanks be to God, I continued pressing, and I crossed that stage in December. So thank God for the journey. And I appreciated it even more because I struggled and pressed my way. So the highways of life can't always be straight and smooth. There will be twists and turns. There will be rough spots. And in Milwaukee, y'all can testify, there will be potholes and even detours. A detour is often a long way around that takes you off the quickest route. But later, after a bit of delay and some unfamiliar territory, it will lead you back onto the main road. I recently had this experience also while driving back from Boston. Seemed like I'm always driving. I was driving back from Boston, and I had to take an unexpected detour from the planned route due to some unknown road conditions ahead. Now, I don't know about you, but when the GPS tells me there's unknown road conditions ahead, I don't question being rerouted. Amen? I just take the alternate route because I'm not trying to find out what's on the road ahead if it's unknown conditions. Amen? So even though I didn't enjoy the idea of the detour, I realized that there had to be a good reason for it. And I didn't waste time questioning. I just followed directions. Somebody say follow directions. I knew that eventually I'd make it back to the main route, and of course, then I'd be back on my way home. Oftentimes, the delays and detours in our lives that are divinely orchestrated by God are not met with such acceptance. When God detours us, we tend to question. When God detours us, we tend to resist. When God detours us, sometimes we cry and complain. And what did they say about the children of Israel? They murmured and complained. 40 years in the wilderness. I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to spend 40 years in nobody's wilderness. Amen? Our personal goals that are divinely redirected by God can sometimes become a focus of complaint and discouragement. But just like a detour on the road,